Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday Avini Testimonial call. We have a special guest today. We are so excited to have our biochemist, Rik Deitsch. He is our Chief Science Officer, and we are just excited to have him today. I'm Robin in California. I want to welcome you to the call. If you're brand new, thank you for spending your time with us today. We know that you're going to be excited by the end of this call of all the information that you hear. We have wonderful, incredible, original. I mean, just these products are just natural, but they are magnificent. We want to share our Avini products with you and the testimonials that come from them. We also want to invite you to take a look at our business opportunity, because just by going out and helping people change their lives, be able to have better quality of life or take their life back with our products, the company just pays us extremely well to share those. So we want to invite you, if that's something that you'd like to do with us. We have an incredible Avini family here. We want to invite you to be part of that. Our products are all natural. We don't make any medical claims, but we don't need to. Our bodies were created miraculously, and they can do their own healing when they get the right help. And that's what we have with Avini Health. And we just want to invite you to take part of that. I'd like to introduce you to another wonderful guest, but he's part of our family. We love to have him here on our calls. Neil Roth is our CEO of Avini Health. And Neil, come on and share with us what you'd like to today.
First of all, I want to say hi to everybody, but more importantly, I want to say thank you. We had an amazing weekend with the reintroduction of Nano Silver. We literally had our best day ever yesterday. And as somebody was saying, we just want to break it apart again tomorrow. Let's just keep going. But you guys are doing great. It was an amazing, it has been an amazing November, and it isn't over yet. You did extremely well, so we're pleased with that. So, with the introduction of Nano Silver, some things have changed, obviously. I've had, let's see, if there's 2,000 distributors, I probably had 3,000 texts and emails asking me when we're going to change the activation packs. So we are going to change them in the next week. I can't tell you the exact day because there's a lot of preparation that has to go into that, including, making new images up and getting it all set up in the system, and Rik having to set up the warehouse so that he can pull it correctly. But we'll do it. But I'm going to tell you something that we find exciting. We have now reached a point that we have enough items that we really can't do the line justice in a $2.99 and $4.99 pack. So we are going to be adding a $7.99 pack. And that, it's not something you have to do, but if you want a nice supply of the product, and I'm not talking about months. I mean, it's only going to last you a month or two if you're using the products. We have so many products now. But it'll be, over $1,200 worth of value in there. The points will be, the dollars will be $200. The points will be 300 points. So it's going to be something that you can help grow your business even faster with it. We've had a number of requests for a higher volume. Somebody kept asking for $9.99. I thought that was too much now. Someday we'll have enough products. The one thing that we don't want to do is be a pantry company where you get enough product to fill your pantry for the rest of your life. We're not going to do that. You're not going to get a lot of pieces. You're going to get 1, 2, 3 pieces of a product. That's it. And there's a reason for that. Number one, it doesn't make any sense from the business standpoint, because the purpose of business is to recreate every month your volume. And you're not going to recreate your volume if I give somebody 4 months worth of product, right? So, that's just good business from our standpoint. Number two is that when you see it, you'll see how little we can actually give you at these price points now because of the many items. The only item that we're not going to include for the time being in the pack is going to be the Plus Energy, because it really just doesn't fit, and it'll be tough to ship the stuff correctly if we add that to it. So it'll be a while before we add that one to it, but I think you're going to be pretty excited. I can also tell you, look, we're not done. I mean, Rik and I aren't done and Doug are not done by any stretch of the imagination. Over the next 30 days, you're going to hear about some exciting things that is going to take us into the new year and make us explode even bigger than we are today. Keep growing your business. Be prepared for January 1st. Get people into the system. Get them going, because it's gonna be explosive once we introduce some of the programs that we're working on right now. So with that, as we said, we reintroduced the Nano Silver. It's been a arduous trek finding one. Between all the work that Rick had to do in testing, we spent tons of money in testing. We've tested, I can't even count anymore how many companies we've tested. And it's amazing how people's products don't normally live up to what they write. I guess is the best way to describe it. That this product has everything in it that we've all wanted. So without further ado, I want to introduce my partner and probably one of my best friends in the world, Rik Deitsch. We've been friends for 20 plus years. And our partnership and Doug is going to take everybody to the moon. So Rick, it's all you.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, it's a pleasure. So as you can see, I'm still at work. I did take off for the Thanksgiving weekend, but we came back to hundreds and hundreds of orders from the Black Friday specials, and we're catching up. Worked very hard today. We batch fiber today. We obviously silver because that's the product that we now brought back. And today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept of the silver product. And some of the things we looked for when we decided on this particular iteration. And then I have already been asked a few questions. I see that there are already a few questions in the chat room, so I'll try to hit them all. Because I'm here, I'm still working. So even after I'm off this call, I'm back in my lab. We have to get silver ready to batch in the morning, more fiber in the morning. Cell Defender we made, we have to wrap them in that foam wrap that we wrap before it goes out. The other thing is that silver, we put, depending on the temperature where it's going, we can put it in little silver pouches that prevent it from freezing. So we have the weather channel up all day to see what temperature it is where we're shipping product. So like product was going to Spokane today. I'm like, how cold could it be in Spokane? Well, it was 23 degrees in Spokane today. So that you got a little silver envelope, whoever ordered from Spokane. And then a product that you guys don't have, but we make a product called Pet Pain Away, which we have to batch tomorrow as well. So that has to cook overnight. So I'll probably be here till about 10 o'clock tonight. But it is great because I see there's 140 people on this call, so it's certainly worth my time to get on and try to give everyone an update. All right, so first, we had a silver product, a nanostructured silver. Now understand that silver is becoming a commodity. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of producers of silver products now. And the great majority of them are simply ionic silver, which is basically silver that's in solution. Ionic silver has been used for about 80 years in healthcare, but ionic silver is great. It's antibacterial, it's antiviral. And it's really great as a topical product. I've always loved ionic silver for topical viruses, for topical rashes, things like that. But the problem with ionic silver is that when you take it internally, that silver can get everywhere. And just like it can kill bacteria and viruses and things like that, it can also damage healthy cells. It really became big in the 1950s, 1960s because people with rheumatoid arthritis used it successfully. And they said, wow, it's really great for my arthritis. Well, remember that rheumatoid arthritis is autoimmune. So the immune system is the culprit. The immune system, your immune system is attacking healthy joints and connective tissue through a hyperimmune response. And so the silver damaged the immune system, and so it helped rheumatoid arthritis, which is great if, I guess, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, but not good if you're a healthy person. Lots and lots of silver products were big through the 70s and the 80s. And then as we got into the 90s, people started studying, instead of ionic silver, structured silver. So how can I make silver molecules, large molecules that are too big to damage or get into healthy cells, but would actually damage and hurt bacteria, viruses, things like that. So Frank Phelps let us know that it hit 10 degrees in Spokane. That was not on the Weather Channel today. So I will say that there are a lot of different now structured silvers, and that to understand what that means is you have basically a sphere of silver ions together They're in a colloidal suspension, which is a solid suspended liquid. So it's no longer a solution. It's a solid suspended in a liquid, a colloidal suspension. And that's exactly what we're supposed to have, nanostructured spherical silver in the previous product. And we had that. The problem is it didn't stay the same all the time. Over time, it will break down. You get ionic silver as it broke off for the nanostructured silver. You had different sizes, different concentrations. We didn't have a consistent product. So we made the decision that if we couldn't have a standard, consistent product, batch to batch, we didn't want to give that to our distributors. We want to make sure that we always know what we're giving our distributors. And so that's when we pulled the silver 4 or 5 months ago, whatever it was. And we're looking again for that concept. I got to tell you, I was dubious, and I did even tell some of you that I never expected to have silver back in Avini because I didn't think we could have a standard product, and I was wrong. We found a manufacturer that has done dozens of studies on their product. And their trick, and it's a very interesting chemistry trick. And I put a picture of this up on your back office, or when you go to the, when you even go to the Nano Silver to order it, the last slide kind of shows the structure. And what it is a nanostructured spherical structure of the silver, of actually silver, and then it's surrounded by a monolayer of silver oxide. And basically it's a silver surrounded by a pyramid, a tetrahedron of oxygen that protects it, and it coats that silver and it stabilizes it, so it will not break down. So it has all the benefits of this nanostructured silver, but it won't fall apart. So that was fascinating to me. And right now we've only gotten the first batch in, but it was exactly what they said, exactly the parts per million, the 12 micrograms per dose. But I also did my own little test, and let's see if you guys can see this. So I mentioned it was a colloid, and one of the tests for colloid is something called the Tyndall effect. Raise your hand if you know what the Tyndall effect is. Anybody? Oh, Neil knows because I told him. Oh, Sharon Bowler knows. Okay, so the Tyndall effect is a test for colloids, and it basically states that if something is a solution, it will not reflect light. But if something is a colloidal suspension, light will be picked up by the colloid, by the particles. So if you ever look at a semi-cloudy day, you see the sun shining through, you see sunbeams, that's the Tyndall effect, because the air is a colloidal suspension. You have particles, you have pollution floating in the air, and it's picking up the sun's rays. So you see it as sunbeams. So here I have a bottle of sparkling water, and here's a laser. So my laser's working. Okay, so if I do this, you can't see the laser beam in the water, even though the laser's going through it. There's the laser, but you can't see it in the water. Okay, so the water is not a colloid. Okay, this was our previous silver product, and here you can see the beam going through it clearly. But look how diffuse it is. Look at all the glowing beam around it. Okay, so it is a colloid, but the diffusion shows that they're much larger particles. In fact, much larger than what they're supposed to be. So instead of 7 to 10 nanometers, they're probably 30 nanometers or larger. Okay, so this is the new silver, and you can see the beam, but it's not as diffuse. Okay, I don't know if you can see the difference. It's not as diffuse. You can't see like that just pops. So it's clearly a much smaller particle size, and the beam is much clearer as it goes through. Can people make that out? I don't know if you're seeing it as clearly as I am. Okay, and then this is a really strong laser. This is the laser we usually use for testing, which is a weaker laser. But if you look at this, you can see the beam through this. Okay, now look at this. You're not even going to be able to see the beam. It's going to be so much dimmer. You can barely see the beam because the colloidal particles are so much smaller. Can people make that out? So that's a really elegant test that you can do for colloidal suspensions and for particle size. Now, of course, we don't just rely on that and using my laser toys in my office and using our eyesight. We send it out for testing, and they do X-ray diffusion and diffraction, looking for particle size, things like that. So I'm really proud of the fact that through the due diligence process, we found a stable product that's going to be able to do everything that silver should do. So what is that? So silver is highly toxic, but it's a very specialized highly toxic, especially in this nanostructured form. It likes pathogenic bacteria. It doesn't like healthy cells. It doesn't like healthy bacteria. And this is something that it's really hard to describe if you don't have a basic understanding of microbiology. But there are thousands and thousands and thousands of microbes in the world. Most of them are harmless. So in our bodies now, we have thousands of different subspecies of microbes that are completely harmless. In fact, many are incredibly beneficial. We think of bacteria, though, we think of harmful, but of all the millions of species of microbes, less than 100 are actually pathogenic. You know, you can get a comprehensive list of every pathogenic bacteria. We know what they are. Now, of course, there's subtypes, there's mutations, but there's only a little less than 100 real pathogenic bacteria. And they're differentiated physically by their structure, usually the cell wall structure, but also the way they actually create, kind of hijack our own nutrition to be able to create a colony and be able to grow. There's a great little thing. I'm going to put this up somewhere, but if people can make this out, it kind of shows the structure of membranes and cell walls of different microbes. And based on the cell wall and the structure, it shows how they might be attacked. As an example, most pathogenic bacteria are either gram-positive or gram-negative. They have a cell wall made of peptidoglycan. And most penicillin-type products interfere with the production of peptidoglycan, which is necessary for the creation of the cell wall. So when you take those penicillin-based antibiotics, it's literally preventing the bacteria from building a skin. It can't build its outer structure, so it falls apart. And that's how those antibiotics work. Now, the problem with those antibiotics is they can also affect healthy bacteria. With the silver, there's paper after paper after paper that shows it doesn't hurt the good flora and fauna of the body, but it does hurt pathogenic bacteria and viruses as well. Now, viruses don't have a cell wall; they have a cell membrane, like our cells do, but they have a very tricky cell membrane with a lot of proteins involved. In fact, it's a very standard cell membrane versus us. We have a fluid mosaic cell membrane. So I'm giving you guys a whole microbiology class, but the point is that we can see. Oh, someone's asking me about gram-negative. Pathogenic bacteria are both gram-negative and gram-positive, but most are gram-negative. But depending on if they're gram-negative or gram-positive, that just tells you if the outer layer is peptidoglycan or not. And certain gram-positive bacteria is actually easier to kill than gram-negative with the current antibiotics. Yeah, this is a 5-credit course, by the way. I don't know if I told you at the beginning of my lecture. So I'm just fascinated because I always think we treat disease very haphazardly. A lot of times we treat disease just by trying to kill everything in sight and hoping that you can bounce back and healthy cells can regenerate. I like to try to target what is different about the bad cells, what is different about the virus and bacteria that can be targeted specifically and spare all the healthy stuff. And I think we have it with this silver. And I've said this before, and I said it with the previous silver. It's such a great combination with the zeolite, because the zeolite is not a supplement. The zeolite doesn't give your body anything. It takes things out of your body, and it takes out the heavy metals, the volatile organic compounds, these toxins that are damaging us. So all the non-living detritus, all the non-living stuff, the zeolites can take care of. But the living stuff, the bacteria, the viruses, the pathogens that shouldn't be there, I think the silver is going to handle. And so it's a great 1-2 punch between the zeolite and silver to clean out everything that doesn't belong in your body. I think, Neil, I think I hit on all the basics.
Yeah, no, you did. I mean, you know, it's important to realize that they guarantee us. There's 2 things. Number one, we have a 31 ppm version of this. The last one we had was 12. So you can see this is like 2.5 times more concentrated than what you had before. So you shouldn't have to use quite as much. Obviously, you know, when you're using it, you know, you always want to be careful. I know some people like to drink the whole bottle. I don't think, even if you were doing that before, you need to do that this time. You probably could get away with an ounce or 2 if you're ill, instead of taking 4 ounces. There's nothing worse than a $75 shot that's not made of good scotch. You know what I mean? So So I would do that. And the other thing is, I think it's important that they are guaranteeing us, and we have seen so far, that this silver is 5 to 7 nanos. It's in the range that all the studies that have been done says it needs to be in order to do what we want it to do. So, I think you guys should be proud that you have this product. There's nothing like it out in the marketplace. This 31 ppm version we have will be the only company in the world to have that. So I think it's you're going to be pretty excited with it. It's gonna grow and grow and grow.
Also, Rick, can you talk about the frequency aspect that they talked about?
Yeah, Doug, I understand what they said. It basically resonates at frequencies in the ultraviolet range. The problem is that it's hard to quantify, okay? But their concept is, there's been a lot of research over the last 20 years of how to utilize different frequencies for the treatment of disease and dysfunction. So much so that we now treat cancer using ultrasound, and the ultrasound vibrates a certain frequency that heats organs, so you can use less chemotherapy to do the same job. Because as those organs are heated, they accept the chemotherapy more readily. There's also ways that you can use gold particles where you put chemotherapy in the gold, and then you use certain ultrasound frequencies to vibrate the gold as it attaches the cancer that kills the cancer. So there's a lot of frequencies being used in treatment now. And some of their research suggests that because of this particular particle size, it resonates at similar frequencies as ultraviolet light, which is deadly to pathogenic bacteria. Ultraviolet light causes something called thymine dimers. It actually damages the DNA of the bacteria, and they don't have a way to do what we call dark repair. So when we get damage caused by the sun, these thymine dimers that cause little kinks in our DNA, we go through a process called dark repair that fixes it. Bacteria doesn't have that option. They don't have dark repair like we do. So it's another way that could potentially kill bacteria. I need to dive a little bit more into their particular research to see what the mechanism is, how that functions. So that's more physics than chemistry, but it is fascinating that they've done that research and have some of that recorded. But I have to do a little bit of more of a deep dive before I can teach it.
So somebody asked how to use it, and initially, listen, you've heard me talk 1,000 times. It's really great that we have products that are going to help you if you have a product, if you have a problem, if you're ill, or whatever it is. But it's more important that you work on yourself from a preventative standpoint. So from a preventative standpoint, we believe you should take this and spray it in your mouth, 3-4 sprays, at least 2 or 3 times a day, just as a maintenance deal. Obviously, if you have problems, you're going to take more of it. See, Rick is a very good model. So, and obviously there are other uses that people use it for that I really don't want to talk in this environment about that. If you have something you want to talk about, I would suggest you talk to Doug Dickey. He has an incredible amount of experience and expertise in the use of the silver product, and you can use it externally. I know I use it when I get a cut or a bruise, I put it on there and it does definitely help me. So.
Rick, before you start answering the questions on the side, and we'll let you loose for that. Is that okay, Neil? Are you good if we go to the questions? I did want to also just make sure everyone knows that Doug Dickey had a lot to do also with helping Rick and Neil find the company. We want to say thank you, Doug, for not giving up too.
He actually found the company.
Yeah. So I wanted him on here. I was so thankful he was on here today. I just texted him. He says, I'm already on, but I wanted to make sure that we also just honor all 3 of these guys for really bringing us Avini, guys. We cannot say enough. And we know that we don't know what you've been through, all of you and your families, to get here. And I'm so thankful for that. And I also want to bring Marcy and Chip in this, and Dave and Valerie, because they really kind of came alongside you guys and really, you guys have just brought us something fantastic, and we're going to do our job to get it out there. But we wanted to say thank you. I'm just speaking for everyone right now, but then I'm going to turn it back over and let you just go for questions. So thank you, Doug, very much. Appreciate you out there helping us build by doing all the events, and Marcy and Chip and Dave and Chris and Darren, all the leaders, Rich, Carter, all of them on the calls and everything. We have, I don't know if everybody can feel, I have been told, and I feel it too, the love on these calls is not normal for business. And we are different. We are a family, and we want to invite anyone that wants to be involved, that cares about people, to be involved with us and get the word out, because we are changing and saving lives through this company. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. I will say I am missing Taco Tuesday for this. So hopefully my wife saves me some leftovers. Okay, so someone asked a few weeks ago on the Avini Science page, I found a brief view of a study which includes science about making blood cells more slippery. I don't know about blood cells more slippery. We talked about making bacteria more slippery. I know that's one of the functions of the mushroom, is it prevents matting. It actually paralyzes cilia on the outside of bacteria, and it prevents the ability for bacteria to start to adhere to things. So it's anti-adhesion, which is usually done with proline as an amino acid. Chip, do you know what they're talking about?
I was going the same place you were. That's what I thought was the study on the mushrooms and the anti-angiogenesis, I guess.
No, anti-angiogenesis is prevention of creation of new blood vessels, which cancer cells drive new blood
adhesion.
vessels. Adhesion, yeah, it's adhesion molecules.
Adhesion.
So a lot, yeah. So cancer cells have adhesion molecules made of lysine, and so do bacteria, because cancer cells are floating around. They want to attach to something to be able to grow and create a tumor, and bacteria does the same thing. And there's drugs that actually prevent adhesion. For example, trimethoprim, which is used in urinary tract infections, does the same thing. It blocks the lysine on the surface of the bacteria to prevent it from sticking to stuff. And the funny thing is, what is it? It's proanthocyanidin, which is in cranberry juice, does the same thing with trimethoprim. It makes bacteria slippery, which is why you drink cranberry juice if you have a urinary tract infection. The bacteria becomes so slippery it can't hold on and mount an infection. So it's very, very cool stuff. But I don't know anything about making blood cells more slippery. If anyone knows what they're talking with, what she's bringing up here, what Lucy's talking about, let me know, because I don't see a reason to make blood cells more slippery.
My mind goes to, Rick, sorry, Chip and Rick, my mind just goes to, and it's probably not what she's talking about, but the aggregation of cells, when we would see that, taking
thrombosis, yeah.
That's
Thrombosis is different. Yeah, thrombosis is where cells form a clot. And clotting is absolutely necessary. If you get a cut, a scrape, you got to heal, you got to clot. But clotting can also be incredibly dangerous. If you clot and it blocks the vessel of the heart, it's a heart attack. It blocks the vessel of your brain, it's a stroke. And so you got to beware of too much thrombosis or being thrombolytic. And that's one of the reasons people take blood thinners. But none of our products actually affect prothrombin time, or the time it takes to clot. So once again, I don't know.
I think the other thing that she's talking about is what we've seen in live blood cell analysis, dark field microscopy, when the red blood cells are traveling in groups stacked up like poker chips, and in the presence of the product, they travel in singles, nice and plump. That could be possibly what we're talking about.
Yeah. And a lot of that also has to do with electrolytes and things like that, because once the fluids are balanced, then everything kind of separates and it flows better. But it has nothing to do specifically with thrombosis. I tell people this because someone's going to listen to this call and think that we thin the blood, and we don't. None of our products are contraindicated at all with blood thinners and have no effect whatsoever in actual prothrombin time or the time it takes blood to clot.
The benefit that I think they're looking for, as far as gas exchange in the lungs and in the tissues, if the cells are traveling in singles instead of in stacks, that happens in a very few minutes, and there's a lot of benefits in a really short time.
Yeah, it's a better oxygenation. We even see that just with the zeolite, so yeah, I see what you're talking about there. All right,
that so is with zeolite. Yeah, that is with zeolite, I would think.
Yeah. All right, so if we can find a specific paper that talks about it, I'll take a look. Someone says, have you any experience with mold? It affects the body terribly. We're currently working to get out of our home. It's affecting us greatly. I don't have my product yet. Well, so mold, there's a many different types of mold. All of it's nasty, but of course, black mold can be really pathogenic and cause a lot of damage. If you do have black mold in your house, first of all, get rid of it, but also go to a physician, have yourself checked. Now, I'm going to tell you the silver kills mold. It's one of the things it kills. So if you have mold topically, you can use it topically. If you have been affected by mold, you can take it internally. I tell people with the zeolite, I try to be cautious because everybody calls me and says, does the zeolite get rid of this or this or this? And they start the laundry list. And we've studied, 12 different heavy metals. We've studied dozens of different volatile organic compounds. We've studied radioactive material that we know the zeolite removes directly. But for the most part, I see it really doesn't matter if the zeolite directly removes something because it's cleaning out your body. As your body gets cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, it becomes better and better at removing the stuff the zeolite doesn't. As an example, liver function improves. We've seen liver function improve in pretty much anybody using the zeolite, using the cell defender, and the liver is responsible for transformation to clean out all the other stuff. One of the things we've measured, and if you've heard me speak about this before, is phase 2 human glucuronidation, which is the way the liver balances hormones in the body. If you have excess hormones, that can be really dangerous, especially with hormone-sensitive cancers like testicular or prostate cancer in men, uterine, cervical, breast, and ovarian cancer in women. So that phase 2 human glucuronidation is really vital to prevent those cancers. And a liver, if it's damaged, doesn't do that. You wind up with all sorts of varying hormone levels. And we've seen an upregulation of phase 2 human glucuronidation in people using the zeolite. So that's just one example of the liver working better.
Rick, there's also, for the person who has that problem, there are some incredible HEPA level filters out there that you can, air filters that'll clean out your house and help keep that out of your system. So if you need some, get hold of me and I'll give you the name of a couple of people who make them. They're not inexpensive, but they work incredibly well. I have them in my house all day long, got rid of my allergies. So it's good stuff.
Fabulous. Yeah. Of course, I work mostly in our clean room, which has 3 HEPA filters, the active HEPA filters in our clean room. It's the cleanest air you'll ever breathe. So anyone that's actually visited us, you breathe the air of my clean room. But the other thing too is molds, yeast, spores, things like that. The zeolite doesn't remove directly. We've also seen that getting the pH up in your body more alkaline becomes an inhospitable environment for the growth of those things. They will get out of your body over time. So certainly using our products, especially the zeolite and silver, is going to help a lot. The oxygen from the water share with the oxide of silver? No, that's a really good question, actually. So the question basically is, there's oxygen in water. There's obviously dissolved oxygen in the water. Oxygen gas is probably trapped in the water as well. Does that react with the silver and form silver oxide? And the answer is no. If you look at that structure I showed you, it's a very stable framework structure of silver oxide tetrahedron. So there's no active chemistry going on. So very little, if any, of the silver is going to be available for reactivity in solution. It's only when it actually gets in your body and it gets into your body, it starts interacting with other chemistries that's going to do anything. But in the bottle itself, no more silver is going to oxidize. Those particles will not change structure. We actually have 3-year dating on it, which is the minimum, but they said it's probably stable forever because of that silver oxide stability of the tetrahedron, the oxygen around the silver. But it is a good question because normally, if you simply have a silver solution, it would rust over time, would oxidize over time and fall out. And this won't happen with this product. Okay. I love the sacred geometry of a nanosphere with a pyramid of oxygen. Yes, so tetrahedrons, anything that's quadrivalent, has 4 things around it, tends to form a pyramid or a tetrahedron because that's as far apart as the atoms can get. So there's something called BSEPR, which is part of chemistry. It's the physics of chemistry and tells you the structure of all the molecules. And I can't even remember what BSEPR stands for. But whenever you have the same atoms around a core and you have 4 of them, it's always going to be a tetrahedron. So yeah, I do love a pyramid. I already talked about gram-negative and gram-positive. We talked about how to use the silver. Is there benefit to diffusing the silver to purify the home? That might be a good Doug question. Doug, do you know anything about using it, I guess, to purify the house? I mean,
It would be good if you wanted to spray it on a rag and wipe down stuff. There's benefits that way. Also wanted to mention that the silver, once it's in the body, since it's sharing an electron with the oxygen on the water, the two will break back apart as the body separates the silver from the water. And so you end up getting this incredible usefulness of the silver the way that it's intended, yet it stays in place until it's used. So that's a really wonderful thing also. But I would say, yeah, you could spray it in the air to, a fine mist. That would be fine.
And, it's also, I think it's also important, Doug, you had mentioned it before, that we have studies that show, and these studies, Rick and I are putting them into shape, and we'll put them on the back office as soon as possible. But this only lasts in your body 24 hours. It cleans out. It takes everything out of your system during that period of time. So yes, you need to keep using it, but it doesn't stick around forever, and it doesn't accumulate in your body. Somebody asked about turning blue. That's what happens when silver accumulates in your body. You turn blue and then you die. But this doesn't accumulate in your body.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Real quick, an important thing is this company has safety studies on the product for everything. If you put it in your ear, they've got a safety study. If you put it on your skin, there's a safety study. Because they work with so many companies, mainly from a preservation of product, that's kind of their industry. They have safety studies out, tons and tons. So that's the coolest thing, is they know their product so well. They've done a safety study on everything. We get to benefit from it as a oral consumable product. That's the really coolest thing. It's like they were waiting for us to come along.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
that's interesting.
understand this is not a new product for them. I mean, they have been doing this, for what, about 16 years, something like that, or more than that?
That's right. Yeah, almost 20.
Almost 20 years. So understand, this has been tested and used for 20 years. And trust me, I'm from the consumer goods business. If you're going to use it as a preservative, it better be stable as heck. And it is.
That's interesting, because like we're using it as a standalone product, and they have had standalone products in the studies of standalone products, but the primary use is a preservative in drugs, for medical devices, for other products. And so if something is a preservative, it's basically preventing bacterial growth, viral growth, mold growth. And so that preservative has to be tested by itself to make sure that it's stable and works, but it's also tested in this final solution. So they have a lot of data on every type of use of that silver, even with other products. So
would you
good
guys
point.
say a little bit about that company preferring and us also preferring that they remain anonymous?
So about the exclusivity of the product, because we've talked about the fact that they've made it, but let's talk about how blessed we are to have an exclusivity with this product.
Yeah, let me touch on that. The company thrives on anonymity because they provide preserving products to everything from makeup to certain types of nutrition drinks, things like that. They're essentially using their product in a much bigger category when you're supplying it to lots of companies to preserve lots of products. Actually, to sell it just as a drink like we do, or a spray in the mouth, is a very, very thin slice of the entire market. So they have a much bigger option to be larger in the market. If they're known, then that market decreases for them. So they like the idea of being invisible, and their technology, their science, their safety studies backs them up. So this is for us to have an exclusivity, not only in the size of the ppm of the product, but in the market, the MLM market also. So size and shape really does matter. We have exclusivity in that, as well as the market. So I don't think we could ask for more from a company that literally has the best product pertaining to silver on the market. And to be able to convince Rick, who was not a silver motivated person before, and he absolutely is excited about this. So we were lucky. We were lucky to find what we needed.
Well, like I said, silver, especially the concept of nanostructured silver, has become a commodity, especially in Asia. And so there's dozens and dozens of companies in Japan and China, in Taiwan that are making nanostructured silver, and then Central and South America. The first 4 samples I got from US companies were terrible. And I told Doug and Neil right away that I don't think we're getting the silver back. I don't think anyone can make it the way we said it could be made and standardized. And the stuff I was getting from Japan was mostly ionic. And so I was giving up. And as Doug just said, this company kind of functions, even though they're a large company that does a lot of this, they basically function as a raw material supplier. So they're not that easy to find. So the fact that Doug found them is pretty impressive, you know, because they are making preservatives for drugs, preservatives for food products, preservatives for cosmetics, you know, a lot of cosmetic preservatives. So it was exciting to talk to them. The guy that runs the company, I think he's made of silver, you know. as Neil talked about turning blue, his fingernails were blue. So, you know, the guy has been around silver for a really long time. He answered every one of my questions, not just answer off the top of my head, he has clinical evidence and papers to back them up. So I was really impressed with what they had to offer. So because I'm going to tell you, I would not have relaunched this product unless I was absolutely convinced that we could do it the way we said we were going to do it. So I thank Doug for his diligence and Neil for bringing him in too.
Yeah. You know, I understand what we just heard. So let me put it in a different context, because I come from the pharmaceutical industry and the consumer goods industry. If it is allowed to go into drugs and cosmetics and things like that, it is actually has to get through FDA requirements in order to do that. It's unlike our regular nutritional products. They're gonna have to go that other level that Rick does for his pharmaceutical products in order to prove that it's safe for human beings. And they've done that.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. So someone asked about how does nano silver differentiate between gram negative and gram positive. I kind of talked about that before, and I have my picture that shows the different cell walls and the structure of the cell walls. But there are very specific things that pathogens do to start an immune response. It's kind of funny because it's, you know, we got sick. We get sick, we get a fever, we cough, we sneeze. A lot of that has nothing to do with the bacteria. Most of the symptoms we suffer are caused by our own immune system trying to beat off the virus or the bacteria. Even a fever is perceived by the body to be a positive because a lot of bacteria and viruses don't do well in heat. You know, so your body heats up to try to kill it. What makes pathogens different is also what allows them to pull in the silver and allow the silver to function the way it does. So I hope that makes sense, but it's all about when they're mounting an infection, as the immune system kicks in, the silver is pulled in as well. Okay. And like Neil said, we're going to put together some papers, and most of this is discussed in those papers about why it goes after the bad stuff and not the good stuff. Okay. Someone asked about sickle cell anemia. I've actually talked about sickle cell anemia before. For those of you who don't know, sickle cell anemia is a genetic disorder. Basically, if you've ever seen a red blood cell, it's a perfect circle with a little heme group in the center. But people with sickle cell anemia have a little kind of crescent moon shaped red blood cell. If you've got 2 bad genes, you're just not going to live. But if you got 1 bad gene, about half of your red blood cells are sickle shaped and the rest are round. And what happens is as they go through your bloodstream, those sickle-shaped blood cells start sticking on each other, and so you have high blood pressure. It's a lot of pain. Mostly, it's treated with pain drugs and with blood thinners, but it is really tough. We've actually used our pain technology because most people with sickle cell anemia take fentanyl, which is an incredibly strong opiate and incredibly dangerous. And we've had a lot of sickle cell people use what is now Plus Relief for you guys with incredible success to get off of opiates. But that being said, there's very little you can do for sickle cell anemia because it is a genetic disorder where you have just misshapen red blood cells. They do some things to improve oxygen delivery because the sickle shaped red blood cells can't carry oxygen. So that's a problem too. They have a problem with oxygenation and things like that. So certainly the zeolite's going to help. The silver would help prevent infection because infection is also a problem. But there's not much we can do for the underlying disease itself. Let's see. What's the shelf life of the zeolite? Should be refrigerated. No, the zeolite. The zeolite's incredibly stable. I've talked about this before. This is formed in the heart of a volcano. It takes temperatures of well over 800 degrees, more than an hour to break a zeolite cage. It's also amphoteric. It exists just as well in strong acid as strong base. So it's really, really, really hard to hurt a zeolite. You can freeze it, defrost it, you can boil it. In fact, part of our process, we heat it up to boiling as part of our activation process. So it's completely safe. Now, there's nothing in the zeolite that's specifically preservative. So if you open a bottle, you spread zeolite on a counter somewhere, it will eventually grow bacteria. It's not a great medium for growth, but it will grow and I've told people who've toured my lab, the first thing in my lab is my autoclave, because I autoclave anything that touches products, I heat and steam sterilize. And that's because the very first time we made the zeolite, I got bottles in from China and they said they were clean. They were all wrapped in plastic. And I bottled them. And then when I tested them, they grew Campylobacter bacteria, which is non-pathogenic. It can't hurt you. But it really upset me that I was growing bacteria in my product, and it didn't come from my zeolite. It was in the bottles. Okay. So if you do open the zeolite, kind of leave it open, at some point it might grow something. But they do have 2-year dating when they're sealed. After you open it, you should probably use it within 60 to 90 days. So it's not going to go bad or anything, but eventually it might grow something. Okay. A little more explanation on the tetrahedral and silver oxide mono coating. So as I said, there's a picture of this on the website. I don't know if I can bring it up on my phone, but if you look at the page where the silver is, there's images. The last image kind of shows the the metallic core, and it shows a thin layer around the metallic core. And then there's a close-up that shows the pyramid of the oxygens with the single silver in the middle. That's the silver oxide. And it's basically a process using electrolysis of self-assembly where they oxidize the silver and then it surrounds, through electrolysis, surrounds those little spheres. So it's a really ingenious chemistry to make these nanostructured silver spheres. But that's basically it. It's the silver oxide coating that completely protects it from breaking down until it's active in the body. Okay, Marion said, I have some people tell me silver times and good turns blue. Well, that I explained that it's ionic silver. And ionic silver is basically when it's just silver ions, the atomic silver just floating in solution and goes in, and silver as a metal can be really dangerous, just ionic silver. And I showed you that if it was ionic, just like the water didn't reflect my beam of light, you didn't see the beam of light, you wouldn't see that in an ionic silver solution, which is most of the samples they sent me were clearly ionic silver solutions, even though they said they were nanostructured silver or structured silver. They were all ionic solutions. But this is definitely a colloidal suspension. We can prove it even with the simple laser test. Yeah, so another good question. Why are our other silvers in a dark bottle and ours is clear? Well, first of all, even ionic silver oxidizes easily, especially in the light. It gets light struck and it'll rust. It'll turn black and fall out of solution. They said in direct sunlight over time, it could start to do that. So one of the things I've talked about is just don't put it in direct sunlight or store it in direct sunlight. But most of us know not to store our dietary supplements in direct sunlight unless you're making sun tea. Do you guys remember sun tea? We used to make that when I was a kid. But the fact is, this bottle is fine for this silver. It's going to stay stable. I also love the effect of the label on the frosted white bottle that you can see through because of just the chemistry between the glue of the label and the frosted white bottle. So it's a great kind of ethereal effect. So I love it. But as long as you keep it out of direct sunlight, it's not going to break down. Add liquid homeopathic instead of alcohol, that's fine. Would we consider adding silver to some of our other products? Certainly, if we wanted to add it as a preservative, it is an expensive preservative. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that we really don't need preservatives in our other products because of the way we make them. But certainly it's something we could discuss, just like we add zeolite to everything. We could talk about the potential of adding this particular nanostructured silver to other things if it's necessary. Someone asked if it's FDA approved. It's FDA approved as a preservative, so it isn't a preservative, which is a level 2 approval. So level 1 approval is it doesn't really need approval; it just needs filing. Level 2, whenever something is a level 2, it actually goes through an approval review, and then level 3 is things like a 510K, which really need you need clinical studies, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, preclinical animal models. That's a little higher. So, okay. So Neil said not FDA approved. I said it's FDA approved as a preservative, which is different than FDA approved as a drug. Okay. Okay. So I just said again why our silver does not make us blue. I just said again because it's not ionic. Only ionic silver gets absorbed, especially to our melanocytes into our skin, to turn us blue. This will not happen because it's nanostructured silver. What product can help with adrenal insufficiency? Well, adrenal insufficiency is a very kind of open-ended thing. There's a lot of things that cause adrenal insufficiency, everything from nutrition to sedentary lifestyle to genetics to even cancer. So it really depends on what form of adrenal insufficiency there is. That's a symptom, not necessarily a primary disease. So Ryan, if you want to reach out to your upline or reach out to me, if you have more information, I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Rick,
Robin, I got through. Oh no, there were
Yeah.
two more things. There are two more
What's
things I have to talk about. I wrote this down. People called me. So one thing is, a lot of people have called me lately asking about fasting. Okay, I'm not a fan of true fasting, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years. People have come to me with juice fast, and one guy came to me with a maple syrup fast. I don't know if you guys have seen this. They basically make this concoction with lemons and maple syrup, and that's all they drink or eat. I'm going to tell you that's not healthy for you. Okay, it's clearly not nutrition you need to live. Okay, so anyone tells me that I live on maple syrup, maybe you live in Vermont, maybe that's a good thing, but it's not what you need to live. So I've never been a real fan of fasting. I do like intermittent fasting. So people that basically choose like 8 hours, and in that 8 hours, that's when you're going to eat, and the other 16 hours you don't eat anything. It actually kind of teaches your body how to burn calories. So people that are dieting can do intermittent fasting. I think that's a good idea. You should know what you're doing before you do it, because any diets can be dangerous. I'll also talk about the fact that the body doesn't like being starved. If you actually deny food to your body, and this happens in many diets, your body actually enters something we call starvation mode, where the body says, I must be on a desert island and there's no food. So what I'm going to do is all the food I eat, I'm going to store as fat, just in case, because I need to preserve that food for longer periods of time in case I don't get food again. So that's starvation mode. And you can tell if you're ever on a diet and you just have no energy, you feel terrible, you're in starvation mode. Your body, instead of using the food for energy, is storing it as fat. And that's not a good thing. And so you want to prevent that. And you can always tell a good diet if you have plenty of energy while you're dieting. Okay, that means you're utilizing your food, and you're turning into energy, and you feel good about it. Okay, so in that case, like I said, I'm not a big fan of fasting. And then the last conversation I had with Darren was, when you fast, what happens chemically in your body? And one of the things that happens is gluconeogenesis, which is the creation of glucose to feed the brain. If you're not eating carbs, you're eating glucose, you have to make glucose. And the problem with gluconeogenesis, it creates ketone bodies, it acidifies your body, it puts you in an acidic state. And that can be really dangerous. When your body is acidic, that's a playground for the growth of bacteria, viruses, cancer. Cancer can only grow in an acidic environment. It requires acid to grow. So if you're in an alkaline state, you can even stop the growth of cancer. And you guys have known, if you've ever seen any medical show, when they wheel them into the ER, the first thing you do is give them 2 cc's of bicarb. Well, that's sodium bicarbonate to raise the pH of their blood. So they want a higher pH, more alkaline, so it prevents the growth of bacteria and viruses and makes drugs work better. So you want to get that alkalinity up. And when you're on those starvation diets, it creates ketosis, which creates acidity, which can be dangerous. So you got to watch that. So that's my fasting lecture. Darren can pipe in if I missed anything. Someone else, there's a couple of articles going around that show how mercury destroys nerves. And earlier this week, someone actually asked me about neurogenesis. Do you regrow nerves? And it's a really good question, because when I was going to school, the answer was no, that when nerves die, they don't regrow. And that, in fact, nerves, especially in the periphery, go through something called Wagnerian degeneration, where a nerve dies, it sends a signal upstream and a signal downstream that kills the nerves next to it, which I thought was just terrible. Why would it do that? What benefits it from killing the cells around it? But so I was always not a fan of Wagnerian degeneration. But we have found now that you can actually regrow nerves, and nerves do regrow, but it niches in the body. So most nerve growth, most neurogenesis takes place in the womb and in infancy. But there are pockets in the brain and in the CNS that can undergo what they call adult neurogenesis. And the number one thing that prevents healthy growth of new nerves or adult neurogenesis is mercury. So when you have mercury, it prevents the growth of those new nerves. And I did have a paper, I think I sent it to someone today, I just found, that looks at specific neurogenesis and how it works. And I can only tell you that the zeolite's going to help. That if you need to regrow those nerves, you need to make those redundant pathways, it's going to help, especially in those sections of the brain that form engrams, that form memory. The zeolite's going to help a lot by removing that mercury. It's going to allow those pathways to take hold. Okay. Let's see.
So Rick, before you answer that next question, I don't know if my internet's coming and going, but we wanted to do something on the recording, and then if you would, we'll stop the recording. We'll hang around for just a few minutes. We won't keep you too far away from your tacos, but we would like to invite new Avini family member, Alexa. Alexa, would you come on? She wanted to thank you, Rick, and she's going to give you a little bit of a quick overview of what's happened in their family. Are you there, Alexa?
Yes, I'm here. Peace. Can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, get a little closer to your mic. We want to make sure we can all hear you. There you go.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, so basically it was several weeks ago that we were just kind of facing a decision on whether or not, sorry, my son's kind of pushing me around right now, but we were kind of facing a decision on whether or not we were going to have to institutionalize our son, who has autism, and he was very violent. We weren't really sure what we were going to do, and it just, the product kind of fell into our lap. It was more of a miracle. I mean, it is a miracle, honestly, but it fell into our lap, and we started him on it on a Monday, and I knew that day we had received a text message from his teacher, just he was shocked because he wasn't the same little boy. I still go between, like, is this reality, or is this kind of, am I in this dream state? But every day since, he's had so much progress. Today he came home, and his teacher and those on the bus had mentioned that he had a fabulous day. With the first week that he was on it, 4 days after, sorry, he's playing on a toy right now, but 4 days after, he had wrote his name for the first time. And awesome. This is a child who is nonverbal. completely nonverbal. Within the first week, like he called me mama for the first time. And so it's really incredible. And every day since, he's just a normal little boy. And so like this, I mean, like I don't know. It's like experiencing all of those things that you do with a newborn, like it's all of those first milestones. And so I just want to personally thank you. And I know that my husband as well would, for allowing us to be able to, just even know what our son's voice sounds like, because we didn't know. We were in a place where, I was divorced a few months ago, and in a nutshell, I was facing this decision. Do I have to give up my 2 older children to their biological father to keep them away from my son, who at the time was violent? And I don't think any parent ever can fathom the idea of having to give up 2 of their children to keep them safe from another of their child, and he's almost 7 in February. He had all of his services taken away from him. He was going to be kicked out of school. I mean, he's only 6.5, and so it's just crazy, and so it hasn't been very long, and so it's just
Alexa,
a miracle.
Alexa, I was going to ask you, when did you start? Was it been 3 weeks? About 3 weeks ago?
Yeah,
okay.
Today is 3 weeks, or yesterday was 3 weeks.
Okay, and I remember your first, actually, I was so thankful Thane called me and put me on a call with you that Thursday. So he'd started on Monday, and by Thursday, he's saying mama. This is a 6.5-year-old. You've never heard that before. And within 4 days, right? And the week before, like, was it like the week before you met Thane on a Sunday evening, he brought 2 bottles over, but right before that, they had told you that you need to institutionalize your little boy. Is that correct?
Right. So that Sunday that he had brought us those bottles, it was not that Saturday, but that Friday that we were told that, we can't help you. And if something happens, like, you just need to call 911. You just need to take him to the emergency room, and it's just, something that you would never imagine. I mean, we've had so many miracles. I mean, just even for myself, I am now completely off my anxiety medication. And yeah, I mean, last week I was on, 20 milligrams of Lexapro, and today, without any withdrawals or anything, I'm completely off of it now. So I mean, taking.
How many drops? I'm sorry. How many drops are you taking yourself?
So 10 in the morning, and then 10 at bedtime.
Okay, and I know several people are going to want to know, what was Artist taking, your little one? What were you giving him?
So he takes 7 in the morning, 7 after school, and then 6 at night.
Okay, so 7 drops of zeolite of our cell defender in the morning, 7 in the afternoon, and then 6 in the evening. And that
for his age, 20 a day is great, spread out like that. Just make sure he's drinking plenty of water.
Yep. I mean, he drinks so much water. I mean, he keeps himself well hydrated. Before he wasn't really much of a water person, but I mean, he just craves it. And so we just are continually, keeping his cup full. So.
Thank you, Lexa. I don't want to cut it off too short, but we're going to go ahead and cut off the recording. And then those of you that are on would like to hang on. I know Rick will hang on for a few minutes. So thank you, Howard, for hosting this. If you would go ahead and do that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate it. And our leaders, we're so, so grateful.